Welcome back to Clash of Cultures. Today we're going to be talking about Alabama signing Kalen Deboer. But before we get into any of that, we did hit 1,000 subscribers, so thank you guys so much. That was our biggest achievement and milestone hit here on the channel. We're going to be giving away that signed Heisman jersey as promised, and we also promised some really big news at the 1,000 subscriber mark. And that really big news is going to be rebranding and changing our name to the Neutral Zone. So, Dad, I mean, they obviously don't know the meaning behind it, but I'll let you kind of kick it off. What was the meaning on why
Yeah,
we changed the name?
let me rewind back. If you guys remember, the channel didn't start purely as a college football channel. This was me and my son, his friends, my friends, talking about a bevy of issues in the culture, right? So that was the clash of culture. Age difference. Obviously, me and my son, him being my son, we have a substantial age difference, and our views on things were different based off of our ages. So the channel started with us discussing, and if you guys go back to the early videos, we talked about music, we talked about shoes, and then on this journey, we kind of dived into college football. So the rebranding is based off our repurposing. We want to be a dedicated college football channel. Clash of Culture just didn't fit the mantra of us being a college football channel. It didn't seem to, if you were searching and saw a college football video and said Clash of Cultures, what is that? Right? The neutral zone, obviously a football term. At its peak, right? The neutral zone being that area between the offensive and defensive lines. And then it being us giving opinions, but attempting to stay neutral, giving opinions that are neutral in output. This fits a college football channel, as that is probably our future. Our future is much more rooted in talking about college football and college football issues and college football news than it is the dive into cultural stuff that we were doing before. So we wanted to rebrand at 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all for all the love and support that you guys have shown so far, and we hope that you guys stay along with us as we go on this new journey as the Neutral Zone. What's your thoughts, Steven?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to talk too much. Obviously, you kind of broke everything down. I just want to make sure everybody knows nothing's going to change on the channel. It's just a different name, different logo. Yep. Everything's going to stay the exact same. We still want everybody to keep coming to the live shows. We're going to schedule our live shows every Sunday now, 9 p.m. Eastern. So please hit the notification bell. It's going to be every single Sunday. The only time it's going to change is when the season starts, which is still from 8 months from now. So we're talking about 30 some odd live shows in a row. So please stick around with us for those. But again, we are going to be now called the Neutral Zone, so no longer Clash of Cultures. But just to get right into it, obviously, biggest news of the offseason thus far. I know the offseason has only been about half a week or so, but probably the biggest news in college football in the last decade. The greatest coach of all time retiring, finding their replacement in Kalen Deboer, formerly known for being the head coach at Washington. I thought it was a pretty good hire. But obviously you're going to be downgrading it, regardless of whoever you went and got. But I think it's a good hire. He's 104-12 in his college coaching career. Obviously, a lot of those coming from a smaller school, but nonetheless, he made it to the playoff with Washington, made it to national championship, and was really, only a 4.5 to 6 point favorite against a loaded Michigan team. I don't think anybody really had Washington in the national championship early on this year. Obviously, there was talks on them, potentially making a playoff push, but I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be this dynamic, this many potential first and second round picks on that offense, as well as that defense. So I think of the available coaches, Alabama, did the best. They got the best hire. I think Lane Kiffin would have been a good hire. I know we talked about Dabo a little bit. I know we kind of alluded to Jimbo being a dark horse. Again, I said it was a dark horse. It was not my favorite. I know a lot of people in the comment section kind of grilled me for that, but it was a dark horse favorite or a dark horse candidate. It wasn't a favorite by any means.
I liked it.
Yeah, but I think Kalen Deboer is a really good signing. Like I said, obviously has a winning culture. I think of all the coaches that was able to be hired, he has the highest winning percentage. Obviously, a little bit less of a sample size, but I think he's able to kind of fit into that role a little bit better than a guy like Dabo and a guy like Kirby or somebody who already has a national championship under their belt, because this guy is still kind of trying to find himself at the highest level. Obviously, Washington went to the playoff, but other than that, he was never really in the limelight, in the spotlight. I didn't personally know who Kalen Deboer was probably up until the beginning of last year. And that's just me being completely honest. Now, some of you have known him for the last 10 years. Kudos to you, but I didn't know him. So I think he's kind of thrown into the limelight now. The biggest job in sports, really, top 3 job in sports. When you're following in not only the greatest college football coach in history, Nick Saban could arguably be the greatest coach in history, period.
That's a fact.
So when you're following those footsteps, obviously there's big footsteps to fill. But I think he has the staff around him. And when I say staff, I mean athletic director, the culture. Obviously, we don't know what offensive and defensive coordinator is going to be there. He has the recruits already there. He has the talent. So I don't think they're going to take a massive drop off. But what is your kind of thoughts on their current situation with DeBoer now?
Yeah, I like it. A lot of young energy, 49-year-old coach who's won everywhere he went. Now we talked, Stephen kind of mentioned or hinted to his time at Sioux Falls. Again, obviously an NAIA school, so not as big in terms of notoriety, but he took Sioux Falls to the NAIA championship 4 years in a row, winning 3 of them. Winning is winning, no matter where you are. He goes to Fresno State, takes them to a 9-3 record at Fresno State. So again, ability to win. Gets to Washington, 11-2, 14-1. So has not had a losing season as a college football coach. Obviously, did a masterful job with this Washington team. Got to the national championship, although they lost. So he seems to come in with energy, seems to come in with a pedigree, with a winning environment, with a winning mentality. I think this is a great hire, especially as you look at some of the people that started to take their name off the plate. I'm going to be honest, and I've talked to Steven about it. I don't think Dabo was ever a true option. I don't think he was going to leave Clemson. We talked about Lanning. I don't think he was going to leave Oregon. And I can't say I don't think he was going to leave Oregon. He said I wasn't going to leave Oregon. So I thought he was option 1, but he said, I'm not going to leave Oregon. Sarkisian took his name off. I don't think Kirby was ever going to leave. I think Lane is good at Ole Miss. And it's not that Alabama is not a great job. It's a masterful job. It's a wonderful job, better than a lot of those places I just mentioned. But I think most of those coaches don't want to be the guy following Nick Saban, right? Lane Kiffin probably knows I have a bigger margin of error at Ole Miss than I would have at Alabama. And all of those coaches probably feel the same thing. For Kellen, this was a major step up. This is a major step up. So he probably has a deep belief in his ability to coach and recruit. Now, my concern is he's never recruited in the South. He's coached Fresno State. He's coached in Idaho. He's coached in the West, the Northeast.
Northwest.
I'm about to say Northwest. He's coached in the Northwest. Recruiting in the South is different, but he has that Alabama brand behind him, and that Alabama brand is big. Can he keep the momentum that Nick Saban created at Alabama? Because if we remember, before Nick Saban came to Alabama, they had some down years. Can he keep that momentum? Can he capitalize on that branding at Alabama to continue to roll, this Tide thing as it has been? That's really my thoughts on it.
I will say this. I think a lot of people think that this program is going to fall off and, lose 3 to 4 games consistently a year. I just don't see it happening. I know the notion is they were a bad team before Nick Saban got there. But at the end of the day, Nick Saban was there for 15, 16 seasons. He completely changed the culture. So even if he has an office there, it's not like he's not going to be there anymore. He's still going to be there. I'm sure he's going to still have his fingers intertwined with the program. I'm sure he's still going to have a say in what's going on. Probably not to the same level as Deboer will. But I still think he's going to have a say. He's still going to help recruit. He's still going to help, the ins and outs of keeping players, of helping Kalen Deboer thrive in the role that he just left. So I don't anticipate him just kind of dipping out and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're on your own. I think he wants Alabama to continue to be that program. He has a lot of pride in coaching them and the standard that he's built and set. So I do think this team is still going to be competing for SEC titles. They're still going to be competing for championships. I wouldn't say they're the favorite anymore. We talked about them in the playoffs, how it was the Nick Saban factor on why I favored them over Michigan. I'm not going to give them that same edge anymore because they don't have him. Right. But I do think, like you said, the brand of Alabama is still very, very strong. And it's very present. I don't think they could have hired someone. They would have had to mess up the hire so bad for people to leave. Obviously, Isaiah Bond hit the portal today, but I don't anticipate just a bunch of people leaving. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think there'll be some, but I
I think there's
don't
going to
see
be
a
some as
mass
well.
exodus.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some as well, but I think they're going to start to realize when next season comes around and Alabama's still beating the LSUs, they're still beating the A&Ms and the Ole Misses. They're going to be like, oh, this is the same old Alabama. Obviously, Nick Saban
Right.
really had his hands tied with the defense and the secondary, but Deboer proved that he's a great offensive mind. So I think maybe the defense takes a step back, but I think the offense may get a lot better. So I really think nothing much is going to change other than not seeing the quote unquote GOAT on the sideline anymore. But I think of the coaches that were available, you kind of alluded to this, Dabo, Kiffin, Sarkisian, Lanning, all of those guys, well, outside of Lanning, have kind of already been up in the spotlight. So if Dabo were to go to Alabama and not succeed, he would be looked as a failure. But I believe that if Kalen goes to Alabama and he doesn't win a national championship, people aren't going to look at him the same way as if it were to be Kiffin or Jimbo or Dabo, because he doesn't already have that kind of expectation just yet. Obviously, he made it to the playoff in the national championship this year. But other than that, it was kind of a bit of an unknown. A lot of these other coaches that were in the conversation outside of him and Lanning, like I said, all of them had already been in national championship, pedigree type situations outside of Kiffin. I mean, Kiffin was a coordinator for during that time. But as far as Dabo and Jimbo kind of goes there, they already have been in the, the top of the sport. So I think that made a big impact on people not wanting to take the job, like you said, is following in his footsteps. But I also think I'm not sure that I'm not saying this is the truth, but I'm sure the AD or people who were recruiting these new head coaches or prospective head coaches were telling them, like, we understand that there has been a dynasty and you can't kind of drill into their head like you have to come here and win, because at the end of the day, that could be the very reason why some of them didn't want to come to begin with. So I'm sure that conversation had to have been, taking place. But like I said, I really like the hire of all the coaches that were available. I think Lanning was the first choice. And then it was Kiffin and Deboer. But I want to know also, though, because he's going to Alabama has to feel like extremely confident because they had to buy out his contract. And what I was looking at, I think they have to pay Washington $12 million, if I'm not mistaken. And I think his deal is going to be totaled at $100 million or something crazy like that, which is a lot of money for somebody who isn't really proven. Obviously, he got to the national championship game this year, but other than that, he hasn't really proven himself. So I kind of wish that we could have like a Hard Knocks kind of version of like what was going on during the negotiations. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want to know what was said, because that's a lot of money to pay someone. And I can understand if you pay a guy like Dabo or even a Jimbo. I know a lot of people hate Jimbo, but somebody who's proven, because Kalen could very well go there and it not work.
And just not work, yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, there's a lot of factors there that could be the reason it doesn't work. Like I said, this is a guy who is not recruited in the South. This is a guy, and this is no knock to any Washington fans, but let's just be honest. Washington does not have the same expectations as Alabama year in and year out, right? So he was able to sneak up on people at Washington. The expectations from day one at Alabama are going to be championship, right? Washington, we look at last year as a great year. Alabama would have looked at this past year and losing in the national championship as a failure. It's a different level of expectations. You're not going to be able to sneak up on people the same way. So there are things in place that may cause this to fail. This is a completely different world in which he's ever coached in his life. And you're in the SEC. The expectations are higher. The recruiting, the battlegrounds in recruiting are way different. You are now not only recruiting in hotbeds, but you're recruiting against great recruiters. Kirby is going to get recruits. Ohio State is in the same places that you want to recruit. Everybody is trying to get the same pool of recruits. When you're in the Pacific Northwest,
there's only two schools.
It's you and Oregon, right? It's you and Oregon. And there's going to be some teams that dip into that area, especially for big stars. We talked about Mbuka. But you're by yourself. You're going to probably mop up all those 3-star, 4-star guys that you want. That is not going to be the case at Alabama. You're literally in the backyard of another prominent SEC school in Auburn. You have right across the way Georgia, who just won the last two not the last two, but the two national championships before this past one. And Kirby's a hell of a recruiter. This is a whole new world. So there are reasons that this could fail, but still, I think this is a good hire.
Yes, and kind of to give an outro to this, like you said, it's going to be a completely different world for him, and it kind of goes back to if I'm not sure if you watched the Nick Saban interview with Reese Davis, but in the interview, after he was retired, did you watch that or no?
I did not.
Oh, so you just watched just like 25 minutes, but he said the standard that he's built at Alabama, when you, it's harder to stay consistently at the top than it is to make a team like, for example, I'm not throwing any shade, but he said it's harder for a team like Alabama to stay in the playoff and national championship picture than it is for Colorado to go from 1-11 to 4-8. He said it's harder to stay at the top, and then he said because when you climb the mountain that many times, you become the mountain, and every single game it's circled on the other person's calendar, and that's the team that they want to beat, and they make sure they bring their their A game and their P's and Q's with them that week. And you really can't fall asleep. We saw it in the USF game a little bit this year. So I'm very excited to see how this works out. Obviously, this is a bang to start off the college football offseason. I'm sure there's going to have some, other firings and hirings and transfer portal news that we're going to kind of break down. Like I said, we're going to be going live every single Sunday now until the season starts, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We look forward to seeing you guys there. Announcement as far as the giveaway goes for the signed Heisman jersey. We will be giving that Heisman jersey or announcing who's going to be getting it on Sunday, the 21st. So it'll be in, 9 days from now. You have to be at the live show in order to get your name on the wheel for the possible signed Heisman jersey. So please show up there. We're going to be bringing that up every single episode until then. We hope to see you guys tomorrow as we recap the Oregon Duck season, and then Sunday when we go live. We will see you guys then. Again, this is a neutral zone now, no longer Clash of Cultures. But we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.